Everybody forgets the lights.
Oh, yeah. And we don't have the outdoor lights, so
Yeah.
Good morning. Welcome to Palmetto Presbyterian Church. It's so good to see all of you here today. Seriously, thank you so much. We want to, I would say welcome visitors. Actually, we have some, I think we have some, do we have some visitors here today? I was going to say there and there. Hi. We don't make you stand up or anything, but there's a welcome pad, a little maroon pad at the one end of your aisle. If you just sign that, and yeah, there you go. Visual aid. But anyway, if you would just sign that for us, or everyone actually sign that. Thank you. We also want to welcome those of you on Zoom. A lot of our northern visitors. You can't hear? Okay, I'm afraid I have it too close, and then, okay, all right. I want to welcome our Zoom folks. A lot of our northern members or congregation do join us in the summertime via Zoom. I also would like to welcome our guest minister today. It's the Reverend R.C. Smith, and his wife, Barbara, is sitting there behind Island. There's a little bio at the bottom of the bulletin, but he grew up in Philadelphia. He spent his whole career serving churches in Pennsylvania, and then saw the light and moved to Florida in 2018. Decided it was too cold up there, but not this summer. And then he was an interim pastor for 3 congregations in the Peace River Presbytery, which is our presbytery that we're in. And his wife, Barbara, is also a Presbyterian minister, and I learned this morning she'll be retiring in October, at the end of October. And between them, they have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. So we welcome you, and thank you so much for being here today. Also wanted to let you all know that Bob Dunn is not here today. Joan and Jeff mentioned that he fell this past week and hurt his hip. So please keep Bob in your prayers. And also Joan and Jeff, because they're still getting over whatever Jeff caught, and then Joan caught it, and it's been pretty bad, and they're still coughing a lot. The only other thing is the thrift store will be back to normal hours starting this Tuesday through Friday from 12 to 3. Does anybody else have an announcement? Okay. All right. Let us begin our worship. As forgiven people, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. May the peace of Christ be with you all.
And also with you.
Time to greet each other. Just remember to come back to your seats. You're in charge of that, by the way.
Peace of Christ be with you.
Good morning. It is good to be with you, and thank you for the invitation to bring God's word to you today. As we gather together in God's presence, we are reminded that we really do not belong in God's presence, that we fall short of all the ways that God has asked us to live. So it is appropriate that we come into God's presence confessing our sin together. Let us pray. God the sower, we confess that we do not always live as people who obey your law. Sometimes we are like rocky ground. We welcome your word when life is simple, but as soon as we face challenge, we forget your teachings and our faith withers. Forgive us, Lord. Let your Spirit work within and among us and make us good soil. Weed out our resistance and water us with your grace, that your word might grow within us and we might bear fruit for the sake of your kingdom. Amen. Hear this good news. Anyone who is in Christ is a new creation. Know that you are forgiven and be at peace. Let us praise God together with hymn number 8. Let us affirm our identity in Christ using words from the Confession of 1967. To be reconciled to God is to be sent into the world as God's reconciling community. This community, the Church Universal, is entrusted with God's message of reconciliation and shares God's labor of healing the enmities which separate human beings from God and from each other. Christ has called the church to this mission and given it the gift of the Holy Spirit. The church maintains continuity with the apostles and with Israel by faithful obedience to God's call. Thank you. You may be seated. I had a bit of a cold last week, so I'm still getting a little bit of congestion, so pardon me if every so often I have to cough or clear my throat. Our passage today is from the 13th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. It is a parable of Jesus, one which I hope is familiar to you. It's a simple parable, but unlike the vast majority of parables that Jesus told, this is one that he actually explained to his disciples. So the meaning of the parable is like right out there in front of us. It's not really all that hard to figure out. We don't have to debate the meaning of the parable, but still, it is the parable of the sower and the seed. I think you know it. But there's still a lot of fruitful ground we can cover. Ha ha. Matthew chapter 13, beginning at verse 1. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got in a boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seeds fell on a path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky soil, rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen." Later on, Jesus' disciples asked him privately to explain the parable to them. And he said, "Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. This is what was sown on the path. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. And when trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of this age and the lure of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit, and yields in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and in another 30. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So I have in my past life a prominent event in which this parable plays a particular part. I hate to think of how long ago this was. 35 years ago, in 1988, I traveled to the then Soviet Union on a mission trip. It was sponsored by a group that I was a part of called the Network of Biblical Storytellers. That group is dedicated to a particular spiritual practice of internalizing biblical stories and passages and then being able to repeat them by heart, not so much as a performance as a sharing, as a sowing of the word, so to speak. We were in the Soviet Union to sow seeds. Of course, seeds of peace and international understanding. We wanted to learn about them. We wanted them to learn about us. But we also wanted to visit various churches and share with the leaders and the members of those churches about our storytelling method. We wanted them to learn about biblical storytelling. So in preparation for our trip to the Soviet Union, we learned to tell the parable of the sower and the seed by heart, all of us, all the members of the group, in Russian. Talk about a daunting task. For almost all of us, knew very little Russian, if any at all. Da, niet, that's about it. Sputnik, right? 35 years later, I can only remember the very first line, and I'm certainly going to butcher it. But here we go. Slušajte, вот вышел сеятель сеять. Listen, a sower went out to sow. What grabbed me then and still grabs me now, and that's why I remember this, is that very first word. Slušajte. How can you not perk up when you hear that word? Russian or any other language. Listen. I wonder how much emotion Jesus put into that one word as he was sitting in the boat addressing the crowds on the shore. Listen. Let anyone with ears listen. He ends the parable with that same word, listen. In other words, don't just hear what I have to say, pay attention to it. Perk up. Focus on my message. Slušajte. That'll grab your attention. Now, in a way, our mission work to the USSR didn't turn out the way we had expected it to. They never do. The types of soil we encountered in trying to sow our seeds were as varied as they are in the parable. For instance, we spent months leading up to the trip to learning about the Russian Orthodox faith and tradition and how they conducted themselves. And then we found, as we got there and tried to interact with the Russian Orthodox churches, that they had no concept of what we were talking about. They don't do individual Bible study or individual memorizing or learning of scriptures. For them, for the Russian Orthodox tradition, scriptures are for the liturgy. And that's about it. So we got nowhere with them. We had much better fare when we met with Baptist churches, Lutheran churches, Methodist churches in the Soviet Union in 1988. The point is, you never know what will happen to the seeds that you sow, where they will fall, and how they will respond and grow. You never know what kind of yield or size of yield that you will get. You simply must listen and sow the seeds of the kingdom. That's Jesus' message. It's the message that the church has proclaimed for 2,000 years. We never know the condition of the soil we encounter in our task of sowing, and it often leads us to be disappointed or concerned or consternated. I think the most common example of this lament that I hear over and over are from parents of grown children who have nothing whatsoever to do with the faith that they were raised in. You probably can raise your hand in agreement with that. It breaks my heart, I'll hear parents say. We took the kids to Sunday school all through their growing up years, but now they don't even belong to any church. Our grandchildren will never learn about Jesus. And I say, usually something like, changing the metaphor a little bit, you did what you could to lay a good foundation for faith, but at some point your children build their own house. We never know when or how they will get around to that task. Maybe never, but your task as a parent was to sow the seed. Sow the seed. And you did the best you could. You never know what the soil will be when you sow the seeds of the kingdom. It's one thing to sow the seed of the gospel in family relationships, but what about with strangers? That's called evangelizing. Presbyterians don't do that very well. We shy away from that word. But it's not that hard. It's simply a matter of sharing your faith, what you believe, when you're talking to someone, Let a seed drop. My faith sustains me through this, or my faith helps me understand this. I've had very notable experiences of talking with individuals, and simply just something I happen to say sparks something in them that leads them in a new direction or back to the church. Or perhaps you've had periods in your own life when you were away from the church and somebody shared their faith with you in such a way that you said, I need to get back into the fellowship of the faith. Maybe you've had that experience. Sowing the seed of the word is a matter of trust, of believing that God is at work preparing the soil to receive the seed that you are going to sow. There are times when we might need to be dramatic. Practice this with me. Slushайте. Listen. I need to tell you something. You might have to be dramatic. But more often, the seed sowing is in a much quieter context. Intimate, earnest conversation. This is why Jesus is a part of my life. The word of the kingdom can be sown in many ways, and surely you've heard the ancient quote from St. Francis, proclaim the gospel, if necessary, use words. I like that, because there are many ways that we can share the love of Jesus, and it doesn't have to be even by verbal conversation. I understand this congregation is committed to sowing the gospel seeds through service to the greater Palmetto community. Your thrift store is one way that you share the seeds of the gospel. How many seeds do you sow in a week to those who come to shop in your thrift store? I was looking on your website. Do you still have a ministry to the homeless? Do you still do a meal once a month? How about the Manatee Elementary? Do you still reach out there? Okay, I see some heads nodding. So how many seeds are you planting of the gospel when you do those acts of love and caring? How else can you sow the seeds of God's love in this community? And you don't have to expect results. God does not require us to ensure that the seeds grow. That's God's job. We are to be extravagant in throwing out the seeds and then letting them grow in their own way, the love and the care that God asks us to share. When we trust God to ensure that our efforts will grow, then there will be fruit. I'm going to conclude with the prophet Isaiah, who proclaims God's promise in this regard. I hope this passage is also familiar to you. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there but until they have watered the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose and succeed in the thing for which I sent it. Slushайте. Listen. Sow the seed, sow it widely, and then God will bring forth the harvest in due time. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. In response to God's call in our lives, we respond with our morning offering. Let us receive our gifts and tithes. Let us pray together. Lord, teach us by your Spirit to be thoughtful and prayerful in our giving. Grant us the joy of the generous heart and the spirit of love and self-sacrifice that was in Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. You may be seated. So I'm going to follow what I believe Pastor Shannon began, which was the sharing of joys and concerns from floor level, and then I will offer the pastoral prayer. Do we have concerns and joys? Yes.
Yes, I'd like everybody to be in prayer for Brian. This week he has a basal cell procedure to be done, and it's on his shoulder, and he's been having problems with it. So we're getting it taken care of.
We'll pray for Brian this week as he has a basal cell carcinoma being removed. Okay? Yes.
Yes, my daughter, Dory, is going through some major decision making now, and I would like prayers for her to get through it without too much.
Prayers for Dory, who has daughter Dory, who has major decisions to make, and how she gets through it in good fashion. Okay. Yes.
Pray for Bob Dunn.
For Bob Dunn.
Who fell.
I think we mentioned him earlier. Yes, for who fell. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. For those who are on the road, that they arrive safely. Okay, thank you. Yes, Barbara? Jeff and Joan Bryden for their healing. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
I have a dear friend in Ohio who is suicidal right now. Her name is Noreen, and she is in a really dark place. And also my boyfriend is in Turkey, and he should be coming home in the next 2 days. So safe passage.
So for friend Noreen, who is in a very dark place and seems to be suicidal, so we'll pray for God's comfort and peace for her, and for your boyfriend who is in Turkey and coming home in the next couple of weeks. Safe travels for him. Way in the back. Hmm. For children who have been taken from their families and forced into human trafficking, that they might be rescued and returned home safely. Yes. With all these things in our minds and the others that we haven't shared but are in our hearts, let us pray together. Loving and gracious God, you have created us in your image. You have put us into this beautiful world, surrounded us with the vast, unbelievable universe. How can we not offer you praise and thanksgiving for all that you have done? And yet, there are also many things that trouble us, that weigh heavily upon our hearts and our minds. And it is with those burdens that we come to you this day. It is good that you have called us together as your people in worship. And it is also wonderful that we can share with you our concerns and our joys, our pain, and our celebrations. You have heard and already know the names of those whom we have shared just now. You know their situations and their needs even better than we do, and we ask for your grace and comfort and healing to be with them. Give strength to those who struggle against dark forces in their lives, forces that carry them along like floodwaters carry an innocent victim from a car. Help them to have the strength to keep their heads above water and to see a way forward to safety. Indeed, we do pray for those who have been impacted by natural disasters this week. We hear about them every night, floods and heat, hurricanes and other types of storms. We pray for their safety. Pray for those who are traveling, that they also might arrive home without incident, into joyful arms of those who are waiting for them. In the middle of the summer, this summer, we pray for children. This is a time when they should be having fun and being renewed in their own lives, and that there are those that for whom this is a time of suffering. We pray for your grace and comfort and your hand of justice to be with them. Lord, bless our leaders, our political leaders in our country, as they make difficult decisions. May they do their work with justice in mind, with the grace and the love that you've shown us. May they show it to others. May they make wise decisions, decisions that benefit the greater good. And finally, oh God, we pray each of us for our own lives and our own faith and trust in you. You have given us the call to share the gospel, to share your love with others. May we do that with steadfastness and with joy, sowing the seeds of the kingdom each and every day. You have loved us with a great love in Jesus Christ. He has spoken your word to us. He has shared your healing power and grace, and we are eternally grateful for that. To you be all honor and glory in Jesus Christ, who taught us to pray together this way. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. What do we do now? We sing? Yes. Our closing hymn, 444. I love to tell the story. That's a good one. Please join me in the benediction. We go nowhere by accident. Wherever we go, God is sending us. Wherever we are, God has put us there. God has a purpose in our being there. Christ, who dwells within us, has something he wants us to do through us where we are. Believe this and go in the joy of God's power and love and grace.